Here's my review of Monarch Episode 3. I think that this is the best episode so far, with not only having some of the best monster action, but also with having the most interesting characters. Because in this episode, we're finally catching up with the older Lee, who's this time played with Kurt Russell. And I mean, Kurt Russell is just, he's Kurt Russell. And he's one of those actors. He's just got like this naturally charismatic charm about him. So he's just automatically just really fun in this episode, as he is in all of his roles. Like whether it's Overboard and then Guardians 2. And I'm pretty sure he played Santa once too. And I think I watched that movie. He was good in that too. I mean, he's great. So I think that's why I think this is my favorite episode, is just kind of seeing the dynamic between like all of these characters, but like Kurt Russell's like he's my favorite character in the show. And I think this episode also has a really cool like beginning opening action kind of intense scene, which I think does a really good job, because they're like almost is breaking Lee out of this like old retirement home where he's like 80 90 years old, and like that's one of those things where you kind of just you shouldn't really think about it. Like he should be dead, but he's not. But and that was kind of like, it was very good at being an intense action scene and very interesting without having any of the monsters, because you care about these characters and you want to see their whole adventure. So just any time just spending time with them is just fun, even when there is no Godzilla. And speaking of Godzilla, we finally get this gorgeous look at him, and it's just great. And the way it's kind of shot back in the 50s, when we're with the young Billy, like when they're almost like they're kind of like more like testing weapons, and like when you're seeing it swim up to this base and just see its back before you get the final reveal, it just leads this level of anticipation, and it's just beating like, and just the reveal, because it just looks so good. And it's just one of those things where, similar like in Jurassic Park, like it's not only a sense of horror but also like a sense of like awe and just the amazement of seeing these creatures. And I thought that it was done beautifully here. And this was all done when they were doing these not nuclear testing, but like these weapon testings, and it was just very interesting. Like I said, I think um my favorite parts of this show are the flashbacks and seeing the young Lee, which I think is just very interesting. But I mean, I'm sure I'm probably gonna enjoy the rest of the show, even in the present, just as much now that Kurt Russell's gonna be in it. And even when it's just Kyoko, Lee, and Billy, like they're still just a lot of fun to watch. And I think that this had like some of the most interesting monster design, like when they travel to the Arctic, like in more of this like searching, like it's just so disgusting, these creatures, where this one's clearly, I'm pretty sure it's clearly designed like a speckled mole, and like, well, it's like tentacles instead of like where the nose is, and it looks insane. It's just so cool. And like the action is just intense, the characters are charming, and just because it just looks, you can clearly see how much this costs. It's just awesome, because so many movies and TV shows nowadays just have, you feel like you can just see the budget, like it's just, but not in a good way. Like you can see it here, but you can see the bad CGI, and it just kind of puts you off. But here it just looks awesome, and I love about the show is how it's not only Godzilla, but just, I mean, ironically, I think the least Godzilla is the least interesting monster, which is, and he's still awesome, which I mean just says to how much these other monsters are and just how cool they are, which I think is awesome. And I think like this one has like these weird like freezing powers, because like one of the pilots dies before like um everyone else can escape. Yeah, like Kate and Lee are able to escape, like Kurt Russell Lee, of course, because this is in the future. And then this guy dies, and that's another thing, is like just these cool visuals, like the idea of like the frozen deaths in like, not, I mean, this isn't a horror movie, of course, horror show, but like those are always kind of like the scariest deaths, I think, in movies. And I thought it just looks just terrifying here. And like I said, but even like personally, my favorite parts was just the escape scene at the beginning when they were breaking out Kurt Russell. I mean, no monsters, no Godzilla, but just these characters, and they're just really fun to see. Like, I mean, Kurt Russell is just having a blast. You can tell he's just having so much fun. and because of that, you're just having just as much fun. I think another thing, like within them showing like the Godzilla from the past, which which that's another thing that threw me off. It's like Kurt Russell would be like, I think they say in the show he'd be like 90 something. I'm like, because this was like in the 50s and he was like in his 30s. I'm like, this, I mean, I guess you're just not supposed to think about it, but I think what the show does so well is like, it kind of just shows you how vast this world is. Like, you know, these creatures have been around for, I mean, decades. So it just makes you think about, like, what more is this world like? What more is here? What more are we gonna find? And with each episode, you're kind of just learning more about these different creatures, whether it's Godzilla or whatever this weird speckled mole looking thing is. And it allows you to not only just be enthralled with the gorgeous visuals and the beautiful action, but also, I mean, they say that meaningless action is already in the title. It's meaningless, and without context, it's just meh. But because you care about these characters, that's what makes it great. Like, I wouldn't care about this fight if I didn't care about Lee, if I didn't care about Kyoko, but I do because I think that the show is very good at writing characters. So yeah, I would say that this is my favorite episode by far, and I would rank it so far. I would rank it best episode 3 so far, then 1, then 2. But I enjoyed all of them. But I think with this one, it just really has everything I wanted this show to be going in, which is the amazing action and the great character moments and just the charismatic characters. And it does it all in a way. It just kind of feels like it's just wrapped up perfectly. And I didn't really have any major complaints with this episode. And another thing in particular, because they're kind of in the mountains, um, it just allows everything to feel. I just like seeing that different atmosphere. Like, of course, they go to like Japan, wherever he. I mean, they're kind of already in Japan this whole time, but like they're going into more of like different areas. But and then you're seeing them going into these mountains, which not these Japanese mountains. I forgot which country they went to, but like they went by boat and then like kind of escaped or whatever in these mountains. But it allows like just for there's only so much you can look at, maybe like just city action, and then when you get add in like the frozen horror and just like the beautiful snowy aesthetic, where it's like, oh wow, that looks so cool, all these beautiful mountains, but then you just throw in this random mole looking just crazy monster. It just makes everything just way more fun. So yeah, I thought that this episode was great. Thought it had the best action, the best character work, and just the most fun I've had with this show so far. So yeah, I thought this was just it's the best episode of the show so far. It may sound like I'm overpraising it, like not some masterpiece like of character work and like of spectacle or anything. It's just a fun time, and I thought that it was really good, and I'm excited for the next one.